CJ Bannister, and welcome to the premiere of The Brightest Moment, produced by Charles Clapsaddle and METV. We're here at the beautiful Sarasota Municipal Auditorium for the Sarasota Film Festival, so sit back and enjoy the show.
Well, thank you for your kind words. It definitely has been a work of passion for me. I've been working on the film or the script for 5 years, thinking about it for most likely 30 years. I am not a script writer, I'm not a writer. A long email would be considered the longest thing I've written before this. I've had a tremendous amount of help along the way. This is the fictional story about Anne Gregory, who is a real character, a pioneer in women's golf and a pioneer in race relations during the 50s. She was the first black woman to play in the USGA and broke a lot of barriers for a lot of young women coming down the road. Like I said, I wasn't a writer, so I found writing it in dialogue or script form was a lot easier for me. So that's the direction I headed. Like I said, I was doing it for 5 years. From my wife to friends to mainly women that I talk to, because here I am, a 70-year-old white man writing about 2 women in the 50s, one of them black. So I'm a little out of my depth. So I used as much resource as I could. And to be honest, our 2 leads, Julia Ray and Andia Winslow, neither one of them had ever acted before. And both of them dissected this script. And by the time they, helped me with dialogue, helped me with structure, we ended up having a script that I was really comfortable with. I mean, that's the most remarkable thing. We were on a timeline and a very thin budget. For a while, when I hooked up with our production company back in 2019, we were trying to think about this as a, quote, Hollywood production. That really we were struggling and it was burning up time and money. And I kept thinking, well, golf is as hard as acting. So if these people don't know how to play golf, we got to teach them one or the other. So we shifted gears. We said, okay, we're going to find two women that were comfortable in front of the camera, maybe had a social media presence and knew how to play golf. And we could not have found 2 better people, by far. They adapted to the story, they adapted to being actors, and I think you'll see that they are pretty incredible. You know, it's about 2 women. It's one of them is African American, but I think it's a human story. It's folded into a sports story, but like all sports, it really is about life experience. And in this movie, there are people that are struggling to be who they want to be, regardless of what society and the people around them are telling them who to be. And they fight to be the person they want to be. Some people succeed and some don't. Look, one thing I do want to say is that this would not have happened if it wasn't for the Sarasota community. This is a collaboration of the performing arts here in Sarasota and the individuals that love Sarasota, and by no chance would it have happened or happened at this quality without the Sarasota community.
The best part is when we were all at the funeral and we all got to gather around together to go say goodbye.
Great. And what does this young lady do in the film? Can you tell us what you did in the film, young lady?
You want to talk for your sister? Okay.
I just do all the work in my school, and I do very good, and I get stars and reading stars.
Good for you. Thank you. So Curtis, you were 3 talented young ladies like that. It really must add like a dimension to the film. Can you talk a little bit about that? Take the microphone, sir.
Thank you. We did a lot of flashbacks, and backstory was important to the character of these 2 women, and to have these 3 be part of it and to demonstrate the character that their older selves had in the film was really important. I thought that all 3 of them did an incredible job. I think Skylar definitely, she was a great learning how to play golf. I think Jamila for sure had the most maybe difficult role. It was the most dramatic, and she handled it with grace and calm. So I was impressed with all of them, and nobody has a smile like Ramia.
Sure. So Babs is an independent woman pursuing her dream of playing golf to the level that she wants to. She's forging her own path in the 1950s, and it was an honor to play such a strong and brave woman, and courageous and willing to also go to bat for what's right. Well, I loved the story that Curtis was telling, and I know that Babs was loosely inspired by his own mother, so I certainly felt the pressure to deliver on representing him well. But I did love the spotlight on women in sports and women in golf, and women going after what they want at all costs and standing up for what's right. I think it's great because the flashbacks for the film really round out the story of these two women, Anne and Babs, and it gives you a better sense of why they are the way that they are and why they are playing the game the way that they're playing the game. I am. I'm a big golfer now after this. I love the game. I actually found, as I upped my golf game for the role, I found there to be so many parallels between golf and acting. They're both mental games, and if you get too far in your head, you're not going to be able to deliver on either one. What do you think?
No, you're spot on. I've already said before you got here just how important both you and Andia were, not only in your acting, but in your development of the script, development of the structure of the story. I think it really came together because of you two and understanding what I was trying to do, understanding the role, understanding the sport.
I would love people to take away knowing how to stand up for what's right at all costs. I think that's a big message of this film, and also for young girls to see themselves in Andia and myself on the screen, and whether it's golf or any sport that they want to pursue, that they have the courage to go after what they want. I am not. I'm originally from Philadelphia, and I live in Los Angeles, but I will tell you, I have fallen in love with Sarasota, and it has a very special place in my heart. I find it so rich in culture and the arts, which obviously is something very close to my heart. So it's been a dream come true to fall in love with this city as I have been making and now making the rounds for this film.
That says everything about Sarasota. This is an active, vibrant place. It's a small city, but you have every type of art, performing arts to museums. Everything that's here is vibrant and it's top notch. It's world class. And for us to be able to debut our film here in front of the Sarasota audience is incredibly important for us because, as I said earlier, they were a major factor in making this thing happen.
I'll reiterate the fact that the Sarasota Film Festival has welcomed us with open arms. It's so special to be able to do the first official screenings where we shot this film and feel so supported by this incredible community, one that I hope to come back to for many years to come.
Okay, well, I had two routes where I got involved in playing through. I do theater with West Coast Black Theater Troupe. Mr. Nate Jacobs is a mentor of mine. So that's how I end up getting in front of the camera because they support us, we support them, back and forth. And I'm a sophomore at Ringling College as a film student. So that way I was able to work on the movie last summer behind the cameras, behind the scenes. Well, I actually played 3 different characters. I played a caddy, I played a photographer, and then I think I played a newspaper guy. And they were all pretty quick. It wasn't any characters I had to develop. It wasn't any big homework behind the characters, but it was still tremendously very, 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 I can't even find a word for it. But
Demanding? Was it demanding?
It was. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. But during those times, you get to see other characters do their craft, and you get to enjoy it. You get to appreciate it more. You get to bond with everyone else, especially with the type of story we were telling. So, African-American woman, first pro golfer that's going through the hard time, especially at the time the film took place. So, yeah, it was all surreal, but I enjoyed every last one of it. Monopoly money. Two friends, work hard. They have good heads on their shoulders, but sometimes you're desperate. Sometimes life takes you on a certain course that you didn't necessarily plan for. And sometimes you just, like I said, you're desperate and you do some illegal stuff sometimes, but illegal stuff always comes with consequences. And these two friends learn that, so they try to find their way back from those choices they made at the beginning. That's about it.
That's a great story. And that's got a lot of buzz too throughout the festival.
Yeah, I've heard. And it's online. It's not in person. But every time I come to one of these in-person film events, everybody, yo, I seen it. It was great. It was amazing. So I'm very happy for the outcome. I'm not planning anything right now with being in front of the camera. But as far as being behind the camera, I am working on a short film that's called No I in Italian. And it's a film about African American descents who came out of Italy. They don't necessarily look Italian, but they are. And people don't, people are always judging a book by its cover. And I want to tell the stories of African American Italians and the experience they went through of racism and people just judging them because they don't look Italian. Well, to be honest with you, it took me 4 years to make Monopoly money. I want people to take away that if you're passionate about something, just go for it. Whether you have the money or not, the support, the resources, just go for it. And you can actually make something of well-crafted and professionalism if you try, With playing through, I want people to know both African American, Caucasian, Hispanic, that we all have our history. And you should embrace that, even if it's, it might not be the best story. Just embrace it, let people tell it. You need to tell people and just embrace it so we can move on.
Well, so this film is actually all about my parents. My parents are both entertainers and creators of musicals and opera, and they're so inspiring to me. And I just felt like, as a filmmaker, I look for stories, and I just felt like their story was one that needed to be shared with the world. They are wonderful people who work so hard. And even today, as they approach their 70s areas, they still have dreams. They still want to see a show go to Broadway or something amazing. So I just feel like it's a great story, inspirational for artists to hear. Yeah, so what was amazing about this project was I realized that I have decades worth of VHS tapes of their performances. I had like 40 to 50 tapes that I went through, and I watched all of them. And starting in like 1984, and then coming through to just like the last year during the pandemic. So I watched everything, and I kind of had to figure out what would help me tell this story, and also what music could I show that I might not have to worry about rights. So a lot of the music in it is older because it's out of copyright. But it was a really cool experience to see my parents growing over the years as they got better and better and became their own fabulous O's. My parents' reaction was that they were thrilled. They were kind of beside themselves. They were like not really sure, like, what you want to do that about us? And I honestly think it was beautifully cathartic for them, because as artists, and they've made certain decisions in their lives. One was to stay here in Sarasota, and I think it validated a lot of what they've done over the years, and it made them look back at things much more fondly than I think that they were used to looking. Even just like their name, the Fabulous O's. My mom told me in the film, actually, you'll see, she never really liked the name. She thought it was kind of like circusy. And I was like, you know what? You need to own that. Like, this is who you are. And I felt like it was good for them to see themselves through my eyes. It was actually difficult for me to get my parents to open up in a way that they were vulnerable. I think they wanted to show everything in like, this is what happened and it's great. This is what happened and it's great. And I'm like, well, let's dig a little deeper here because, for example, as artists, independent artists, they didn't have health insurance their whole lives. And so even just to get them to open up about that was a bit of a challenge. And I do try to show the reality, not just the glitz and glamour of it, but really what it means to raise a family as an artist. Yeah, I think in the last part of the film, I kind of go into their relationship, what's made it last for all these years, and I think that's a beautiful heart of the film. And they work together. They're side by side, 24/7, and they've really made it work for themselves. They have their ups and downs, of course, but I think that you'll see throughout that they really lean on each other to create their art. Yeah, so I'm actually already starting. I'm starting in on my next documentary project. My husband is an architect, and he is going to be restoring a Paul Rudolph home on Siesta Key. And Paul Rudolph is a pretty big architect in the Sarasota School. He's, since passed away, but I think that would make a really great story to tell as another documentary. And I was also inspired by my parents' story on another narrative, which will probably be a short. And it's like, I have a great idea came from listening to these guys talk about their art. So working on that right now as well.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
On the film, the fabulous shows, the marriage, and the music. Final question.
Yeah.
What would you like people, your audiences, to take away from this?
We're here with Thomas. My name is Rodney Pyatt. I'm one of the programmers for this year's Sarasota Film Festival. And Thomas has been coming to the festival for how many years is it?
Since 2011.
And Thomas, we were just talking, and why don't you repeat, what was it you were sharing about the amount of films you've been seeing every year?
Well, I don't always see this many, but one year I saw 51. And I saw 49 2 other years.
That's quite an accomplishment. What's brought you to see such an amount over these past few years?
I just love film, and I see a lot of good films here. I can't say every film I've liked, but I've liked most of them. Yeah.
It's someone like you who we are so privileged to have, and we're so grateful that you come and see so many. This year, what are some of them that you've checked out so far?
I just saw The Hinterland today. I thought that was very good, very original. The art design was terrific. I really enjoyed that one. Right off the bat, nothing else is coming to mind, but I really did enjoy that one. There have been several I've enjoyed. Oh, I like the one about Little Satchmo, for instance, about the daughter of Louis Armstrong. That was very interesting.
I'm glad you mentioned both of those. We do have Hinterland playing again in person on Friday night at 9:30 on the 8th, and we also have Little Satchmo going to be virtual the entire rest of the festival. What would you say in all your years coming, is there any film that maybe stands head and shoulders above that you just can't not think about?
One of my favorites is one, I think it was called Just Like Me, and I love that film. It was my favorite film of the year, and I see like 200 films a year at least. But it never got a wide, showing. It didn't get any, deals with movie theaters or anything. I don't know if it was ever on TV, but I never heard about it. And I just think that's sad. It's such a great movie, just never really got a wide showing. So that one's really stuck with me. It was such a personal film about a woman who had been raped in her early years and come to terms with that, among other things. So that was one of them.
It's really neat to hear something that's stuck with you, and you bring up such a point that not every film gets distribution, so it's great to see things at a film festival because you can see things that you might get to see nowhere else.
That's one of the things I love about film festivals, yes indeed.
We have such a privilege to highlight those and hopefully maybe bring them to the attention of distributors. And I empathize so much to hearing the way you've come for so many years and seen so many things. That's how I got started with the festival, just as attending all the time, and eventually started screening, and then a few years ago began programming. So we're going to have to talk about getting you on the screening committee, Thomas.
Sounds like a good idea. I'd love to.
Thanks so much for chatting with me today. Much appreciated. And please be checking out the films at the Sarasota Film Festival.
We're here today with Fran Paget, who is the director and writer of A Brightest Moment. We're so happy to have you here with us today. I've heard you've been so passionate about telling this story. Can you tell us a little bit about why?
Sure, I'd love to tell the story. The school that we're talking about, the title is Orange Ridge Bullock School, and it lived in Manatee County for 58 years. It was closed in 2016, and at that point, it seemed as if someone needed to talk about the history of the school, understand all the stories that were there. It had a very interesting history during those 58 years, and there were teachers and staff who had been literally at that school, some of them for 40 years, and so they knew much about the school. We started by beginning to just tell little stories that they could remember from the old days, and parents joined in and students contributed, and one thing led to another. We collected artifacts from photographs and mementos of the school during all of its history, and out of that came this wonderful film that really is a kind of an homage to public education in Manatee County, and to this very unique special ed and regular ed school.
That's what I was going to say. Tell us a little bit more about the school. What was it for? And then also, if you wouldn't mind sharing, why did it close?
Okay. There's a little complicated history here. Orange Ridge Elementary School was opened in 1958. At that time, it was just on the edge of town. It was a small little Bradenton town, southern Florida town then, and it was just a regular elementary school for many, many years. The special education movement that started in the 70s gave rise to Bullock School, and it was named after Joberta Bullock, who was a long-term teacher at Manatee High School. She had some physical disabilities. And so for a while, the two schools just lived side by side on the same campus, Bullock with the special education students and Orange Ridge with the general education students. And over time, they began to interact with each other. They began to share some of the spaces, do some interacting together. The general education students would come over and help in the special education classes, and so relationships formed between the teachers and the children. In 1990, the two schools were merged together into one school. That's the name Orange Ridge Bullock.
Okay.
And at that point, the school just became this lovely example of what inclusion with special education and regular education can do for both special ed and regular ed students.
What an incredible piece of history that we get to experience. I'm so excited to see this film. What do you want our listeners to know about it?
I guess I would like them to know that we are telling the story about one very unique special school, Orange Ridge Bullock, but it really is a representation of what public education has been like for 58 years. There are teachers who talk about when the schools were integrated in the early 70s. They talk about what that was like and what those experiences were like from their point of view. When Bullock was built, what it was like for children who previously had been excluded from public school because of their disabilities are now part of public education, what that was like. When the two schools merged together, how did that work? What were the good and the bad about that kind of an experience, unique as it was? And then in the 21st century, when technology came, the school became a school of poverty. Children of different languages were at that school, and how did they access all of education? How do they take high-stakes tests? How does all that work in the modern world when you have all these other variables to consider? So the story is all about Orange Ridge Bullock, but it's a microcosm of what public education has been through.
For sure. So will we also find out what's happened to the students that were going there in 2016? Did they just get absorbed by the public education system, or what happened to those folks that relied on that school?
There's a little bit of that story. One of the mothers is wonderful in telling the story of what it was like when her special needs child then was enrolled at Bayshore High School, and what that was like when he went into a big public high school. In 2016, when the school closed, we had this great party, a celebration of the school, and that's kind of when we first began to say there's so many stories here from so many points of view. Wouldn't it be nice if we could tell their story? And it really became a bigger story than just this elementary school.
So will we find out why the school closed?
Not in the film. The reason why the school closed has a lot to do with the logistics of public education in this century. The school population in the middle of town where Orange Ridge is located is reducing in size, and the big population growths, as I'm sure you know, are out east and north, and that's where the new schools needed to be built. So as they were building schools out to the east and the north, the population center of town lost population, so they consolidated schools. I am happy to say there's a lovely middle school using the grounds now. It's Rowlett Middle Academy. It's a charter school, and they have some of the same philosophies that we did about innovative practices and student-focused instruction, and they've been really great stewards of what we thought was our exclusivity to Orange Ridge Bullock, and so it has a new life as a middle school.
I've heard wonderful things about Rowlett, so good. I'm so glad that at least part of the legacy is living on. So thank you so much.
Welcome.
Your passion for telling the story has been just incredible. We're excited to see it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for giving me the chance to speak. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. We'll be right back. We are here with Kathleen Marie Archer, who's the narrator of A Brightest Moment. Tell us how exciting to be the narrator and tell an incredible story like this. What went through your head about what voice you would use on how to narrate the story?
Well, I wanted the audience to feel like I was talking to them rather than at them. And I didn't want it to be just the facts, ma'am, nothing but the facts, and just because that would just put everybody to sleep. I wanted there to be a sense of intimacy to the story, because it is a warm, loving, intimate story of this wonderful school with everybody who was involved in it, from the teachers to the cafeteria ladies to the parents, doing everything they could to give a warm, enriching experience for the children.
So you're very passionate about it, clearly. Tell me, what is your connection to the school?
I have none, other than the fact that my sister was a principal there and she wrote and directed this film.
That's an incredible connection.
That's it.
So how long was she a principal there?
Actually, I'm not sure. I know.
Okay.
I remember when she became the principal, I visited the school and she showed me all around and she was very proud. It was beautiful. But I was in Los Angeles and far, far away, and I didn't have a sense of how long she was there.
Okay. So what do you want our listeners to know about this story, and why do you think they should make sure they come and check it out?
Well, I think this story, it started out that since the school closed so quickly, the people involved wanted to have a sense of closure and a sense of goodbye. And this story does more than that. It's a lovely thank you note to everybody who was involved, and almost a loving goodbye for everybody, and it gives them closure. And I hope everybody can appreciate that this school was very special, but what went on there, I'm sure, goes on in a lot of schools, and this transcends everything else. Every teacher and every bus driver and every nurse, everybody cares about the children, and that's what this story is about.
Yes, it's an incredible piece of history for Bradenton and Manatee County.
Yes.
But can you tell us, did you have any experience narrating a documentary before this?
No, actually, this was my first one. I graduated from the Oslo back in 1978. I think the people there weren't even born when I was there, but I have an acting background. So I approached it as an actor. What is the story I'm trying to tell? I'm telling you this lovely tale, and I want to talk to you. And there are, beats and ups and downs and humor, and it's just joy in it. And I just thought of it as, well, it's a conversation, but I get to do all the talking.
That's kind of exciting. You've done a great job. I already feel excited to go see it. Your voice is warm and welcoming, and I'm sure all of our listeners will love to see it. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Hi, we're here today with Judge Charles Williams, who is on the advisory board of the Sarasota Film Festival. Tell us today how important this is to Sarasota.
Well, it's one of the big events in Sarasota. Sarasota calls itself, and righteously so, City of the Arts. And the Sarasota Film Festival for many years has been a beacon for film lovers, producers, directors, people from Hollywood to come down to Sarasota not only to show their films and promote their films, but to enjoy Sarasota's cultural amenities. So we're very happy to have it here.
I couldn't agree more. Sarasota really is the city for the arts. Now, you've been involved in some documentaries yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about those experiences?
Well, quite frankly, one of the reasons that I'm affiliated with the Sarasota Film Festival is because they promote local films. And I have had the good fortune to be involved with some local films, many of them through the Manatee Educational Television Network and Charles Clapsaddle. We premiered a couple of films at the festival. Probably our most memorable film that we premiered here was Through the Tunnel. We had a grand event several years ago at the Opera House, had a full house. We honored the Lincoln Memorial High School football team, which is what the film is about. And it was a great event. It's a memorable event, and people are still talking about it.
I think they are. I remember that one myself, so that was a good one. Tell me about all the people that come in from out of town. Do you get a chance to meet with them, the filmmakers and directors being on the advisory board?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I do have a pleasure of doing is sometimes I'm involved with the films in terms of doing Q&As at the end of the film or introducing the film. And it's always a pleasure to meet out-of-town filmmakers, producers, directors, writers who come down to see how the film plays in front of a live audience. And so I get a chance to talk to them and talk to them about what they're doing, their other projects, and so it's a really, really great experience for me.
I had the pleasure of hearing one of the city commissioners today speak about Sarasota, and he said, you know, the thing about Sarasota is it used to be the best kept secret, and people have found out about us. Do you think that the film festival has anything to do with that?
I would like to think it does. The Sarasota Film Festival is a pretty big festival in terms of the national festivals. It's not, you know, Sundance or a huge festival like that, but it holds its own. And for a city this size to be able to put on really a world-class film festival says a lot about Sarasota. And Sarasota, as you know, has become a destination, and we've grown as the city has grown.
Yeah, I've been here 21 years, and it's definitely not a secret anymore. Is there anything that you'd like the listeners to know about Manatee Education Television and the Sarasota Film Festival?
Well, first of all, Manatee Educational Television has done a great job, not only of educating the public about things that they need to know about, but also helping promote local films and local efforts. They certainly do tell stories that need to be told, which I think should be their motto.
Agreed.
And so it's really great to be working with them. It's great to have them involved with the film festival, and certainly the film festival could not proceed if it didn't have Manatee Educational Television to help us through it.
Well, we also need people like you helping us out. So thank you so much, Judge, for being here.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. Okay, so we're here today with Judge Adams, and we just like to know what has been your affiliation with the Sarasota Film Festival in past?
Okay, it all started with coming to a film festival event with Charles Clapsaddle 12 or 13 or 14 years ago. I accompanied him, and we actually got our picture in the newspaper as a result of that, in the Sarasota Herald-Tribune. That's another story. But, you know, I've always been interested in movies. When I was a kid, I'd get on a bus and take the bus 8 miles into downtown Tampa and go to what were called walk-in movies back in those days.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And then after the movie was over, get back on the bus and come back home. So I've always been intrigued with movies and always been I completely adore movies.
Well, this is a good place to be if you like movies, for sure. So tell me, have you ever been involved in any of the documentaries here locally for the Sarasota Film Festival?
8 of them.
8? Oh my goodness. Okay, so can I ask, is there a favorite?
Yeah, I think maybe they're like children, you know. And in fact, Charles and Judge Williams and I, Charles Clapsaddle and Judge Williams and I, we've been involved in 8 full-length documentary movies here, and so each one is obviously unique, and you have feelings for each one that are independent of the others. But I will tell you, in answer to your question, which one is my favorite? I think the first one, Through the Tunnel. Not only did it turn out to be a fantastic movie and was shown, well, you know, it won a film festival first place award in Miami on the first time it went to a film festival. So it's a terrific story, and
A little piece of history here.
oh no, it was a big piece of history. And I'll just give you one little sort of anecdotal aside. When Judge Williams and I were approached by Mr. Clapsaddle to be involved in making the movie, mainly writing it and producing it, we had a meeting at METV, and there were 2 people who were there who were instrumental in the historic story of Through the Tunnel. And they said during that first meeting, They told us about this tunnel. You know basically what the tunnel's about. Okay, they told us about this tunnel, and I said, well, when did they tear it down? And they said, it's not torn down, it's still there. Now you have to understand, I lived in Palmetto for 20 years before we had that meeting. And all the years that I lived there, and as it turns out, hundreds of times I'd driven over the tunnel without knowing it, I had never heard of the tunnel. And that tells you a lot. But in any event, we got in the car, we went down to where the tunnel is. Have you seen the tunnel?
I have not, and neither have our viewers, so you might want to give a little explanation for their sake.
I'm going to. It's under US 41. It was actually built under US 41. Is he telling us to hurry up? It was actually built under US 41 back in the 60s, so that the ball players from Lincoln Memorial High School didn't have to walk across the busy highway to get to the football field. They walked under it through the tunnel.
What an incredible documentary it was.
Oh, it was. No, it really was. In every sense of the word incredible, because it tells a really passionate and important story that's timely as of now. I think it's won 2 or 3 awards at film festivals. I know it won the Best Documentary for the Doc Miami International Film Festival, and it played here at the Sarasota Film Festival. So I've kept, one of the reasons why it's my favorite, I guess, is because I've kept up with the people who were involved in it. We're basically the same age. And I grew up in Florida during segregation. They grew up in Florida during segregation. I tell everybody that, and I said this the night that it opened at the Sarasota Film Festival, that when I grew up on what's relatively considered to be the easy side of segregation. I mean, it was dreadful, but I'd never spoken to a black person until I went away to college in Illinois. And people kind of get amused with that anecdote, but it's true. And so that's how clamped down segregation was back in those days. It's completely unfair. You knew it was. You had that feeling, but in any event,
I think watching it, the viewers felt the same way. I'm glad to have not been a part of it. I can't even imagine what it had been like. How about you give us one more thing? What do you think the Sarasota Film Festival, why is it so important to the city of Sarasota?
It's not only important to the city of Sarasota, it's important to the state of Florida. It gives, I'll say, ordinary people the chance to get a little bit behind the magic and meet movie stars. I've met movie stars as a result of this. And get to meet movie stars, get to see movies, and hear people talk about them, how they were constructed, how they were conceived. It makes the making of movies local, which is extremely important.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Judge, for being here with us. We appreciate it so much. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right, we're here with Jeanette Kelly, who is a teacher at Orange Ridge. Did I say it right?
Yes,
Orange Ridge.
Elementary.
For how long?
For 29 years, a total of 29 years.
Oh my goodness, I bet you were sad to see it close.
Yes, I was, and still sad after all of these years.
And were you a part of this documentary?
Yes, I was.
Tell us a little bit about your role and what you thought was so important to tell the story.
It's important to tell the story because it's one that's going to be looked upon as maybe an introduction to what has been happening in the school system today.
So it's bigger than just the school.
Just the school. And it was an atmosphere that was so loving and so kind and so generous.
Kind of like you.
Yeah,
I can feel that from you, Jeanette.
Thank you.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your role in the documentary. Are you playing the part of the teacher like you did for 29 years?
Yes, I did.
And tell us what that felt like.
Oh, it was exciting, exuberating. It was just lovely. It was just giving a little bit of the knowledge that I gained. And I just wanted to let everybody know what a good organization that we had.
Wonderful. Were you sad when it was over? And can you tell us a little bit about why it got closed?
I don't really want to go into that, really, what you giving my give on that. But I just hated it because I think the community lost so much because we had so much to offer. The people there had so much to give.
Tell us about your time at Orange Ridge. For 29 years is a long time. What kind of students were you able to help during those 29 years?
All kinds. from the lowest to the highest. And it was exhilarating. It was wonderful. And then when we integrated with the Bullock children, it was even better.
So you were there for part of that transition. So it went from a general education to a special education?
Sort of.
Can you explain that a little bit for our listeners?
It was integrated, wherein we sometimes taught with the kids that was at Bullock, the ESE students, and it was beautiful. It was a lovely time. We enjoyed it.
Oh my goodness. Do you have any students that you can think back that really just tug at your heart and that you'll remember forever?
Well, there's one that's going to be here today from the Bullock School, and when I saw him come in, he just lit up, and so did I, because I could remember him so well.
Can you tell us a little bit about him, his name or anything?
I can't remember. When you get a certain age, you lose it, but that's okay. As long as I can remember, I know the face, I know you.
What do you want Manatee County listeners to know about Orange County School?
I want them to know that it was one of the best in Manatee County. I'm going to say Orange Ridge Bullock Elementary was number one.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Thank you for being here with us. We'll be right back. So we're here with Jim Athens, who taught at Orange Ridge Elementary for 40 years. What was that like?
I loved it. A lot of people say, how come you would stay at the same class each year, all 40 years? I said, because every class has their own personality. It's always different. What worked for you last year may not work for this class.
Oh my goodness, what a wonderful thing. So tell us about the transition to when you combined with Bullock.
That was good. We had a lot of the disabled people there, the students, and they really flourished.
Fantastic. And then what about after it closed? How did you feel and what happened? What did you do? Did you retire after the schools closed in 2016?
Well, I retired in 1999.
So you retired before it closed. That's awesome. Is there anything that you want Manatee County to know about the school that you taught at for 40 years?
Well, it's a school that I got my wings tested in many areas. My classes did well. Like one time in my class, we participated in this contest with WEDU in St. Petersburg. They wanted a class to come up with a skit and then mail it in. So on this skit, I already had developed the fourth grade 5. They went to different places for seniors and they sang their songs and stuff like that. So I incorporated them in this skit. And on the skit, every child wrote their own meanings of conservation, and then I took parts of each paper and made a song out of it and a skit. And then I went to the music teacher. I said, here's the words. I want you to get permission to use the song Timbalina, and because it fits. And they did.
How incredible is that?
And then 3 weeks later, we got the letter that my class won.
I want to celebrate with you, but I also want to get one more question before we go. Were you in the documentary for this film? Did they ask you any questions about your experience there?
No, it was on my class. It's where we got on the school bus, and at the time, Mr. Patterson was the principal, and the whole school went into the auditorium, and they saw us perform.
That's incredible. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to interview today. We appreciate it. You have a great day.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here with the superintendent of Manatee Schools, Cynthia Saunders, who's been a part of Manatee County Schools for how many years?
I've been superintendent for 4.
But you've been involved with the school system for how long?
9 years.
Okay, incredible. So tell us, Manatee County Schools has a lot to be proud of. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening there?
So many things, but tonight we're here to honor, of course, Orange Ridge Bullock and that program that has supported so many students, and it has carried on even to today. We have moved the location, but the program is still continuing as the beginning, inception. I don't know if you've seen Fran Paget, if you have interviewed her, but just the support for our special students that we serve, and then they continue on through access, and just the ability to make sure that parents know that they're taken care of, they're being provided a well-rounded education, really is what we're all about. So yes, we are here to honor and support and recognize all the great work for so many that have been involved with that program.
Can you tell us why is it important to tell this story about Orange Ridge Bullock?
Well, just for that, the history and so many lives that it represents. I don't know if you can pan over, but probably half the people here are employees that have worked or been associated with that school. The love for those students and the continuation is huge even to today. Even though the school itself does not exist, it's merged with Rogers Garden, but the supports and the love of that program still continues.
We're glad to hear that. It's a big piece of Manatee County's history. Is there anything else that you'd like the Manatee County listeners to know about the school system right now?
Well, we're just so grateful for the support and the recognition, and that we were able to take a film and show this piece of our history. And we hope that it definitely serves that school and our community well.
So we know it's the Sarasota Film Festival, but tell us, why is it important for Manatee County as well?
Well, you know, we're sister counties. We're always in competition. And of course, you know, your film festival is certainly more renowned than what we do for anything like this in Manatee County. But our students do blend, and they go to both programs, both schools, and we support one another. So it's important that you're able to see what we're doing, all the great work in Manatee County as well.
I couldn't agree more. You guys are doing great things. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for all you do for Manatee County.
Thank you as well.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Sarasota Film Festival. My name is Rodney Pyatt. I'm one half of the programming duo of this year's Sarasota Film Festival. We're very happy to have you all here. It's very exciting to see a full house. You're about to see a phenomenal movie called The Brightest Moment. We are so extremely privileged to be premiering it here today, and you're in for a treat, I can tell you. We also have wonderful programming scheduled for the rest of today and the rest of the more than week till the 10th. So please continue to check out everything online at www.sarasotafilmfestival.com. We have a wonderful virtual lineup, and then we have morning to evening programming here at the Municipal Auditorium every day. In addition to a nightly show at Cinebistro Siesta Key at 6:30. There's some fabulous films playing over there. And Fridays, we even scheduled early at 5:30 so you can make it out to our street party. And now to introduce the film, I'm going to introduce one of the producers, Charles Clapsaddle, and the director, Fran Paget.
Thank you, Rodney, and for that kind introduction. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for attending this evening. Thank you very much. This film meant a great deal to us. Fran Paget, who wrote and directed this, came to us some time ago and said, I have a story to tell. And the more we talked about it, the more we worked on it, it was a unique story. So we're very proud to have produced this at METV. This is our 7th film that's been part of the Sarasota Film Festival, and we're very proud of that. And I want to give a shout out to Judge Charles Williams, who's here, who we've produced several of those documentaries with. But I also want to thank our staff, without who it would not have been possible to make this. Chief among those was our head editor, Chris Dolan. So Chris Dolan, stand up so you can get a round of applause, please. Chris did a phenomenal job as the editor. But more importantly is the story behind this, about an Orange Ridge Bullock. And I think hearing the story, you know, it affects you because you see the importance of young people, special needs children, and more importantly, the teachers and administrators who gave their heart and soul to that school. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Fran Paget, who's kind of the lifeblood behind this, and we're so proud to have worked with her. Fran.
I think is this on? Can you hear me? Okay, now that sounds more like it should. Thank you all again for coming, and I have to reiterate again what Charles said about the wonderful Chris Dolan and his expert editing. This film would never have been made without the folks at METV, and I can't thank them enough. I also, please notice the lobby cards and the beautiful poster. Judy Bayer designed those. The narrator of our film is Kathleen Wolfgram. I'd like her to stand up, please. Her voice gives depth and quality and life to the stories that we tell. This is an homage to teachers, public school teachers everywhere. It includes the teachers from Manatee County, but in particular, the faculty and the staff, the outstanding people at Orange Ridge Bullock, and all they accomplished in 58 years. They worked every day. They accomplished wonderful things. We made lifelong friends with families and parents. Students give us hope for the future. It's a wonderful example. And on the property now where Orange Ridge resided is this wonderful charter school, Rowlett Middle Academy. And they have carried on the same legacy, I think, that was so unique to Orange Ridge Bullock. The innovative strategies, the wonderful instruction, and the child-focused interventions. And I'm so happy that Jamara Clark is here today, the principal of that school. I want to also thank Mrs. Saunders for coming today, the superintendent of Manatee County Schools. And before I close, please, I'm sorry that not every teacher could be here today from Orange Ridge Bullock. Many of them are watching online. Some folks did not. This school went on for a long time, and some people have passed away. I'd like to dedicate this screening today to a wonderful teacher, Frida Steingraber, who just passed away a few days ago. Her footprint is all over this film. She tells stories about what it was like for children with special needs before there was a Bullock school. I hope you enjoy the film. I hope you stay through the end. There's quotes all through it, and the final quote in the film really summarizes the philosophy of Orange Ridge Bullock School. And I think now that I look at it, it was Frida's philosophy as well. So enjoy the film. Thank you.
Again, a very special thanks to Fran for all of her work. But I do want to do a special thank you to Mark Famiglio and the Sarasota Film Festival. Their vision and purpose in bringing locally produced films to the film festival has been very unique. And we want them to continue that as long as possible. But Mark has really made a big emphasis on this community by having the film festival, which is now in its 24th year. And we should all be very proud of that and what that's meant to this community. So thank you. Please enjoy the film. And we're going to have a short Q&A as the film ends. So thank you again. Hello. Again, thank you all for joining us here this evening, and we hope that you enjoyed and will take something away from this film.
I want to thank both of you. For being here, and what a gift this film is for our audiences, and what a privilege it is for us to be able to present it. My first question is for you, Fran. I have to ask, what was the genesis of knowing that the story that we just saw was one that you wanted to make a film about?
The school closed in 2016, and can we hear me now? Okay. The school closed in 2016, and you could tell from some of these stories they were being told while the party was going on behind the speaker. And when you listen to those stories, you realize that everyone who was touched by that school had something to say. And when we started to collect those stories and put them together, it wasn't just about Bullock, or it wasn't just about Orange Ridge. It was really about the history of public education. Everything that happened at Orange Ridge Bullock in those 58 years happened somewhere, everywhere in the United States. But this is how this school faced it, and how they triumphed over every single thing that was thrown at them. There were teachers and therapists and aides and administrators and secretaries and custodians who met the challenge and persevered. And I just didn't want that to be lost. When the school closed and everybody walked away and just began to lead their own lives, something would have been missing if we hadn't told that story.
What was the process like, Charles, and in collaborating with one another and bringing MeTV into it, and what was that process like?
METV has worked with Fran for many years, and we admire not only her efforts on other projects, but her dedication to the brightest moment. When the idea first came to us, when Fran first came to us with the idea, we looked at it and we thought about it, and we thought how best we can tell this story. And we had a wealth of information to work from. But I must say, as this thing kind of began to focus and look towards being a documentary, the one thing that became critical was the script. And I have to really salute Fran for her writing abilities on this. It is clear, it is concise, it's emotional, and it gives a wealth of information about education. And not just about Orange Ridge Bullock, but about education in general. And the writing that Fran provided as the script was critical and instrumental in the successful completion.
And Fran, speaking of that script, can you tell me how long a process it was to create that? And what was it like in terms of getting the footage of the many interviews? Was the script after all that, or was it happening weaving in and out?
It sort of evolved. We began by trying to have a series of panel discussions about the school at different chapters in its history. And we came up with a number of stories, but it didn't make for interesting television. When you then looked at combining vignettes of the stories that people told during their panel discussions with what went on at the party, at the end of the school closing party, we began to see there was a theme there, and that was the passion that each person had toward the job they did or the experience they had. Then we put out a call, and teachers and other folks from the school began to bring artifacts in. And then we had all these wonderful photographs and all this. It just sort of gelled after that. So in the writing of the script, and I did write several variations before we came up with the one. Several. It seemed that once we were able to tell the story as a historical perspective, then everything fell together. And you could see how articulate all the people were who were speaking in the film. It was from the heart, but they also knew what they were talking about. And then I have to say, even though it is my sister who was the narrator, she brought the depth. Once her voice was put in that film, then you could feel the emotion that I thought I was trying to write on the paper. But it was the narrator that kind of brought that all together, and I think it was
the narration added just a great deal to the fun. You can feel that not only the gentleness, but the emotional impact of Fran's words. And I have to salute. It's a wonderful narration.
And it gives such a continuity to the whole story and really gives a beautiful through line. And as you said, there's so much emotion imbued into it. Something that's so integral to the film seems to be something that in my life I've seen. My mother was a teacher, and something I know to be of teachers is that they're the best teachers are great learners. And this film really shows the way that teachers and schools learned as time went on and as things changed. Can you both share, what did you learn that maybe you didn't expect to from the beginning of this process to the film that we saw today?
Well, if I may, what I learned from this is the tremendous dedication that teachers have. They dedicate their life to helping children learn. And in some cases, as you saw in some of the cases, it's not an easy task. But these teachers devoted their lives, their energy, their expertise, their passion to helping children. And the result is in the success that these children had. And that's what I took away from it. You know, I've always had a tremendous respect for teachers and educators, but these teachers at Orange Ridge Bullock were something different. Their work was harder, somewhat, but they brought this passion of learning to their children.
I think for me, what I have learned is the importance of telling your story, being able to share what's unique and powerful and special, and not just assume that people will remember it on their own. And I think as Manatee County grows and enlarges and gets bigger, and there's all the pluses that come with growth and expansion, but we also lose some of the history that makes us a unique place. And I think many schools, probably every school in Manatee County has a story to tell.
And I think that's really a good point. There are stories to be told in each and every school of successes, challenges. So there's more stories out there, and hopefully we can bring some of them to you in the future.
And that leads me to ask, is there a story that's percolating now as you've seen the value in sharing a story and in saying something out loud to kind of document it? Is there anything collaboratively happening between you two currently?
I don't think collaboratively, and I know Fran's got a million ideas taken away in her head all the time. But from METV's point of view, we do have a project that we're working on, which is a kind of an addition to a documentary we did years ago called Through the Tunnel, which features Coach Eddie Shannon, who's the winningest football coach in Florida history. And he just turned 100 a few weeks ago. But there's a story there about his life, which we kind of featured somewhat in our documentary Through the Tunnel. But we're thinking about an additional documentary about his life and what he brought to this community and to the athletes that he served. So that's something that's kind of formulating at METV right now.
I think for me, I don't have any more projects like this going. I think my husband and the rest of my family are breathing a sigh of relief at this moment. But I do feel that we're at a real critical point in public education today, and we need advocates and supporters and cheerleaders for the work that teachers do in education every day. And I hope that I have started that voice on my own, and I hope that I can continue to be that kind of voice.
And if I may, I just want to again do a special thanks and a special shout out to our superintendent, Cynthia Saunders, who's here tonight, one of the best superintendents Manatee County schools have had. And her vision and purpose in providing the best education for schools, the best opportunity for teachers, goes without saying. So we're very, very proud that the superintendent joined us here this evening.
And I also want to thank both of you for being here this evening. Thank you again for the honor it is for the Sarasota Film Festival to get to showcase the brightest moment. And thank you for spending this time to chat with us. I want to thank all of you for being here. Please continue to check out the films in our lineup. Our goal is to highlight voices locally and nationally and to give you a good lineup through the 10th. So please check it out virtually and in person. Thank you all for being here, and thank you.
Thank you, Rodney. Thank you very much.
That's a wrap for tonight's premiere of The Brightest Moment, produced by METV. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at the movies.